2 weeks ago, I tore down a Mini Cooper N18, and McGurk1 said, "Oof, BMW M54 is what I thought was up." The week prior, I tore down a rotary, a 13B Turbo 2 ARC-7 engine, and he said, M54 possibly next week. 3 weeks ago, I tore down a Tundra engine, and McGurk1 said, M54 next week. A month ago, M54 teardown next. I could keep going on and on and on. McGurk1, you have won. You have won because we are going to tear down an M54, but we're not going to tear down the wimpy little 2.5 liter. We're going to tear down the 3 liter. The 3 liter M54 B30 out of a 2004 BMW 330 Ci. Well, that's what the engine came out of the last time, but this is not the engine that was original to said E46. Now this is out of a 140,000 mile car that I bought at the auction that Copart claimed to have no engine. Just bought this E46 330 Ci. Auction says no keys, no engine. Does it have an engine? We'll find out. It's here. However, once we got it running, we swapped a key set over to it because it had no key. It smoked profusely. It also had bald rear tires.
Clearly, never been driven hard ever. Straight piped, yes.
There's a welded rear diff, straight pipe exhaust. A cheap cold air intake, and plenty of reasons for me not to trust the engine. Now, this engine did run, it did rev good, but it also produced quite a lot of smoke, and my guys couldn't really tell me if it was oil smoke all the time, or perhaps it was overheating. We never got it to overheat. However, with all of the red flags that the car displayed, plus you'll see as we tear into it, it's been into before. The last thing I want to do is sell this engine, waste somebody's time putting it in to find out it's coming back. It's a lot different when I'm selling a used engine control unit that you can install in just a few minutes. When it's a complete engine, I'd rather just tear it down. BMW's M54 came out for the 2000 model year in 2 different displacements, the 2.5 liter and the 3 liter. And it is very closely related to the outgoing M52 TU, which is pretty much the exact same engine with just a few different parts. It's the same, but it's different. It's almost the same. Now, these engines were available in pretty much every 6-cylinder BMW offering, the Z3, the E39 530, as well as the early E60 530. They were in, of course, the E46 330, the Z4, the X5, the X3. It's a very widely used engine, and a lot of people really like these engines, myself included. They're very easy to service. The parts are very inexpensive. They are very reliable. I see these things all the time with well over 250,000 miles on them. But unfortunately, not everyone takes the best care of them. Now, there are a couple different variants of the M54. This is a later engine because it has the snap-in coil type, but from 2002 and back, they had the earlier bolt-in coil type. Plus, there's also one called the ZHP, which has a slightly different set of camshafts. Well, the cams are slightly different is what I meant to say. They make a little bit more power. They have a slightly different tune, and they're available in the E46 ZHP. But for the most part, these engines are all the same. All right, a quick look at this thing before we start ripping into it. I really like the fact that someone installed 5 out of 6 performance coils. And I know they're performance coils because they're red. So clearly they make more power. It's also got a broken valve cover. It's good signs here. And then let's go around to the other side. We've got a Chinesium disvalve. Now this isn't really a bad component here. These are okay for intake boots. So obviously someone's been in here working on stuff, but I also found that some of the intake bolts are missing. The optional ones are missing. And of course, the metal oil cap. So the plastic oil cap just isn't very strong at keeping the oil in, so you install a metal one, it's much stronger. One may ask, how would I ever know if this is not the original engine? There's not a VIN on this engine, but it says E60 right there. So yeah, this has been replaced. The block also has some damage here, so yeah, we're not going to sell this as a whole unit. Let's pop these coils out. Start at the front. Look at that red coil. Now there are real performance ignition coils available for BMWs, and they aren't just a different color, they're actually an improvement. But for these are trash. Now we'll get the plugs out. Oh, my spark plug socket's not happy. No, not at all. These are auto lights. Auto lights. Auto lights. Auto lights.
Auto lights?
No! 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 Why? All right, I'm over it. This engine had auto lights in it, but they're all the same kind. Two of them, the rear two cylinders. Well, this rear cylinder doesn't look too bad. The rest of these all reek of oil, like reek of oil. So we're gonna find some problems. Can't believe someone put auto lights in here. Incompetent. Now we're gonna work on the engine harness. We're trying to unclip some of these injectors. Try to get this cleaned up a little bit. Every part of this thing has been apart, it seems like, at this point. All right, harness clips are off. Now we're gonna unbolt the intake manifold from the cylinder head after we unclip this real quick. Missing. Only one of two. Only one of two. You can see how that just acted like it wanted to fall off. I probably missed some things, so we'll be gentle. There's a whole bunches of stuff. Just a valve. Fuel line. Support bracket. Oh wait, I think I need to get the dipstick tube out. Already? All right. This should not be an issue. BMWs and I have a very good relationship. Oh, there better not still. There might be oil in this thing still. We're just gonna let that hang out. All right, some more stuff to disconnect. I don't think that harness is gonna come off with the intake. Idle air control motor. Come on, let go, please. Big old battery cable. All right, what did I miss? Evap. Oh, crankcase ventilation line is in real bad shape. And throttle body. Intake is off. Okay, so this is the dipstick tube in one of the crankcase vent lines, and it looks good until you look at it, and then it looks bad. You don't want to see that. So just because it looks good with the sheathing on it doesn't make it good, because that's not fixed. All right, before I zoom into anything, I want to show you some things that I found besides the fact that the cover was missing off the injector harness. This wire is broken off. That did not happen when I pulled the intake. That is bad. A lot of this stuff was not in the correct location, which tells me that someone's been in here that lacked the ability to put things back to the way they found them. Throttle body connector is missing locking tab. It's broken off. It's not a hard connector to operate. So overall, the shoe is starting to fit a little bit better. All right, we're gonna take a minute and get the rest of this harness off since we are so close. There's not really too much to do here. Connector on the thermostat. And over here, cam sensor, Vanos unit. I got to pull this radiator hose off. Now, the E46, to my knowledge, was the very first vehicle that got the clip-on style radiator hoses and heater hoses, and I really like this style. I know a lot of people don't, but I like them because when they're on, they're perfect. When they're not perfect, they leak, and you know exactly that you did a good job as soon as you get some pressure in the system. I think it's just a much better idea than letting someone put the wrong clamp on it. All right, so now this should be able to do the things. Well, I need to help the harness past this. Oil pressure sending unit. Disconnect the knock sensors. Crank sensor. Oh, forgot about the oil level sensor. I'm looking at the intake ports. They look pretty good. A little bit of debris in there that could have come from pulling the intake. Definitely, well, hard to tell what that really is. Definitely from pulling the intake though. Before we go any further, I'm going to pull the fan blade off. So this is a part that, when the fan clutch fails, explodes and takes out a bunch of things in the area, sometimes even the hood. I hardly ever sell these, but every time I do, someone needed it 15 minutes ago. So I like to keep one or two of them on the shelf for that person so that they have their car for whatever event they need. So we're going to go ahead and get that off. The next first thing we're going to do is remove the coil harness. All right, now we can unbolt the valve cover. All right, we got Blue's debut with this engine. Let's see what we're working with here. Well, it's not as bad as I expected. The valve cover is pretty soft and pliable. It's clearly been replaced. Let's see how these feel. These are nice and soft too. Surprising. Usually those are hard as a rock. Go ahead and get this off if we can. There we are. Well, it's pretty varnished in here, and all the crevices down here are full of oil deposits. They're just full of varnish and junk and gunk, but I don't see silver sparkles, which is what I was hoping to avoid in this teardown, because this is a rather fruitful engine to tear down. I can sell pretty much everything that's good, and so far I don't see anything that's going to, besides the block damage that was external, really create a problem for me financially on this engine. The next step is to remove the oil supply from the Vanos unit. Now we can start unbolting some things. All right, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here. We'll remove these plugs. That one doesn't fit that good. That one does. Oh, that was a whole bunch of oil on the floor. Bunches of oil. All right, I got a pan underneath it now so we can come back out with it, let it drain. I was very unprepared for that. All right, now we need to pull the plugs. There's one. Come on, give it to me. Well, it fell out inside there. We'll get it out later. It's not a big deal. I've got a couple T30s, and they are reverse thread. There's one. There's two. And now we can unbolt the unit. And now we'll give it a couple little taps here. And she's off. Get the oil filter removed so we can take a look. So there are places where you should use cheap parts. This is not one of them. Super El Cheapo oil filter. Let's see what's in the pleats. Well, I don't see any sparkles. There's some stuff in there though. I saw it looks like it could be timing guide, which wouldn't be impossible. Maybe a couple glistening pieces in every pleat. Yeah, there's a couple shiny things. Not too terrible though. Overall, not too bad. All right, I get my pan in position because we're going to pull the oil filter housing next. Now these are a notorious, ooh, that's leaking some coolant. These are a notorious spot for oil leaks. This thing is absolutely coated. That wasn't tight. It's probably one of the reasons why it's leaking. Some of these were really tight, some of these were really loose. All right, final bolt. Well, it looks like this thing's been drained long enough. Get some of this bolts out. There's the infamous oil filter housing gasket. And these get hard as a rock and they puke. This one's definitely overdue. Let's see how that looks pulling it out with a pick. All right, see what this looks like. Well, it came out in one piece. It's really not that bad. It was just the bolts weren't tight enough or too tight in the wrong spot. It's not the softest one. Yeah, it just broke. It was overdue. But I expected worse. All right, now we're going to get the thermostat off. Once there's not a nut in the socket. Fixed it. There's a lot of discussion as to what is the preferred thermostat for these engines, which these use the same style thermostat in a lot of cars. I usually like Genuine, but there's another company that makes it for BMW. And those are usually what I like to use. I would just stay away from the cheap ones. So get what you pay for. These engines are still not free. Now we're going to get the fan clutch off of the water pump. There we go. Let's see if this works. There, that's out of the way. Next thing we're going to do is remove the timing chain tensioner. Probably leak a little bit. Or not. All right, now we're going to remove the cam gears and the secondary chain. I'm also going to unbolt the secondary chain tensioner. Next, an E8. Let's get a little help here. There we are. Let's get this chain past this tensioner. We'll be all right. Just like so. You always want to make sure you don't take these out and change their orientation in the chain or anything. That's only if it's going back together. This. That's good. All right, and now we can start getting the cams out. Now it is time to cram the cam caps off. All right, let's get these unzipped. Sounds wrong. Ooh, I feel like it might be under a bind. So these have trays and not traditional journals cast in the heads. I love this design. I think it is superior to many designs from many manufacturers. This cap it's very stuck. This should do it. It didn't do it. Well, or we could just do it that way. I didn't really want to do it that way, but that's the way we did it. Let's get this cam out, and then we will lift the tray. Now, all the buckets are going to come falling out of it, and that's all right. That's okay. Let's go ahead and get those retrieved. I'm going to work on that right now. And now the exhaust cam. All right, all these look like they'll come out just fine. Now the shaft of cam. And let's just rotate this a little bit and pull the tray. The tray needs a little convincing. And one thing we can try is rotating the engine over so that the buckets slide out with the tray. See if that works in our favor. I don't think this is going to be enough, but we're going to try it anyway. Shaboopy. What is this? What is the meaning of this? There's a washer in here that doesn't go there. Wow. Okay, I guess if you just drop it in there, replace it, and hope for the best. So let's start with the intake cam. And it looks pretty good. There's a little bit of scoring right here. It's not terrible. This is a little worse. I think it would polish out. I cannot feel it through my glove. Well, I can. Just a little. So that's the only cause of concern, except for that same spot over here. This one's a lot less bad. Now, the trays look really nice, and the journals look good. The journals actually look better than the camshaft does. Not a ton of wear, which is good because these are sellable parts when they're good. Now the exhaust cam looks pretty similar. Everything is very consistent here. I don't really see any damage that would really concern me. They're not perfect, but they're not torn up either. It's not like there's a bunch of debris run through here or they were run dry. It does not look like that. Caps all look pretty good. So do all the lifters. Probably the roughest one right there. Now this is the most baffling part because I found this washer hanging out in here, and this washer is actually one of the washers that goes on the valve cover. So when someone was doing a valve cover gasket, they dropped this in there and maybe they just gave up trying to get it out. I would never just leave a loose piece of metal inside an engine, especially near the valve train. No sir. But they did. We have a few things to do. We got to get this guide out, and then there's a bolt here and a bolt here. These are E8s. Well, that just shattered. So that was super strong. If I could just... That's incredibly brittle. Super duper brittle. We tested that chain guide and it failed. I have one more thing I need to do before I get the head bolts loose, and that is to get this coolant pipe removed. Do I need to remove this other pipe? I think I do. I think that's got to come out. Let's go ahead and zip the couple of 13s out of that. Oh, nice. A little RTV on the O-rings. I wonder how well that worked. And now this should pop right out of there. Those O-rings don't look so hot, but there's no RTV on them at least. Let's get the head bolts cracked loose. Oh, we are leaking something fierce. The good news is, well, that's not really that good. One of these has pulled some threads out, which is kind of what they do when they've been hot. At this point, we should be able to lift the head right off the block. It's probably gonna make a mess. Let's just try to, let's see here. Oh yeah, mess is the word. At least it's BMW blue. I'm happy about that. I wonder if I go straight up and down the wrong way, if that's easier or less messy. Let's just do it this way. Let's use our noggin here. All right. Well, the cylinders are full of coolant. Head gasket. We're going to have to look closely at that here in a second. I'm going to turn this thing over and empty all the gunk out of the cylinders. Let's see how much of a mess we make here. I'm not looking forward to this, but you know, you do what you got to do. I got plenty of pig mat here and my floor is sealed, so. This is almost hopeless. I'm catching like 80% of it. which is about my ratio of colds with my kids. Oh, we're leaking oil back here. All right, I think I'm going to rotate it the right way up. We'll deal with the ramifications of the rest of this later. Well, pistons look okay. A lot of buildup on them, a lot. Cylinder walls don't look too terrible either. I don't see anything jumping out at me. They're all pretty consistent. Lots of buildup though. Looking at the cylinder head, it's clear this thing's been chewing on some oil for some time. This is a ton of buildup here for intake valves and exhaust valves. But I don't see any cracks, which is the good. I don't see any signs that this thing was majorly overheated. I looked the head gasket over really closely. I didn't see any issues with the head gasket. This all looked really good. Didn't see any problems at all. Science is a constant, which is why we are going to do our scientific test on an engine that I think I know, will pass just fine because this engine ran. See, they all move. You guys thought the center two weren't going to move, did you? We're going to take a minute and we're going to get this motor mount arm off and the compressor bracket with belt tensioner. Before I rotate this over, I'm just going to do my best to drain if there's any residual oil. I'm trying to mitigate any messes here. Let's rotate it just a little. Yeah, it's got some oil left in it. Not a lot. But it wasn't drained all the way. Thanks, guys. All right, now we're going to rotate this thing upside down. Hopefully it's done making a mess. It's probably not done making a mess. It's not. It's not done at all. Alrighty. And now we are ready to pull the pen. I'm going to start with the ones that are harder to get to. And now I can knock the rest of them out. I think I've reached terminal capacity. And that's all the pan bolts. Let's see what it looks like under the pan. Oh, okay. Didn't really require a ton of force. All right. Well, while the inside of this looks pretty varnished and dingy, it doesn't look terrible. I don't see any signs of forbidden glitter. The screen is clean. It looks pretty decent in here. I don't see any concerns, really. And lots of varnish in the pan. But no chunks of anything. Nothing that's not supposed to be here. Even in... Oh, see, there's a few pieces there. That looks like a timing guide. And that was super brittle, so that checks out. But I don't see a ton of anything. Nothing that would cause a major concern. Next, let's get the pickup removed. Easy peasy. Next, I'll unbolt the windage tray. This is one 10mm right here in the corner. And voila. All right, now I think we're going to try to get the oil pump nut off. And now we can unbolt the oil pump. All right, let's take the oil pump apart. There we are. It came apart really nice. Let's get the stuff cleaned up so we can take a look. Well, the stuff looks pretty good. Not a ton of damage. A little bit of wear on the sides. Housings look pretty good. Super simple oil pump. I haven't really seen many of these fail. And by many, I mean I've never seen one fail. At this point, I'm going to do something a little out of order, but in the right order for one of these engines. I'm actually going to take the rods and pistons out of the block now. My shtick is a little too big for this task. Maybe not. Oh, there's not a lot of tension with these coming out. Wow, they practically fall out. Oh, I wanted that. Okay, let's see if we can get the crank pulley bolt out easily. I have my doubts. These are tight. Very tight. I think part of it's the fact that there's no rotating assembly. Probably should have done this early on. All right, let's cook it. Got my induction heater out. I didn't really eat anything too spicy tonight, and I don't have a torch here at the house. I mean, I don't have a torch that I can use for this. Just try to get some heat in it. Come back after just a few minutes. I don't know if it's hot enough yet. Let's try it. Nope. More cooking. This might be a problem, guys. I don't know if I have a way to block the crankshaft. Even if I had a breaker bar. I mean, I do have a breaker bar. I don't want to hurt the crank. Oh, wait a second. What am I doing here? I forgot I brought my big one home. That did it. Now, if I'm mistaken, which I might be, I think I can, this just comes off. Yes. All right, it's time to work on the water pump. I know you guys have all been waiting. Whoa there. I can tell you this has definitely been replaced. Now, I really like the design of these water pumps because they have jacking bolts, at least threaded bosses, for this purpose. This is how to remove it. Look at that. but they still chose the one with the crappy plastic impeller. Now, it may be okay, but a plastic impellered pump is just no good to me. All right, now it's time to unbolt the lower timing cover. This is really dirty. I think that's all of them. I do think that. Let's give it a little tap. Then this one down here? No, there's just a dowel. Oh, we're getting ready to drop a chain. Oh. So that's all busted and broken. That's in 2 pieces. The other pieces of this beautiful guide went into the muck, for which I am not going to retrieve right now. But there's even some shrapnel in the timing cover. Yeah, timing guides on BMWs from this era, they're really good now that they're 20-something years old. But this chain, look at this unit here. That one's a little on the small side, but yes. Let's get this crank out of here. Got to loosen the engine on the stand so that I can get the crank out, because I should have pulled the rear main seal plate, but I didn't. See, is that loose enough? Yeah, maybe. See, can I get this looser-ish? Yeah, I messed up here, guys. I don't know what I was thinking, or if I was. All right, let's get these main caps unbolted. Oh, it's gonna be like that. Blue. Poor planning on my part. There's a thrust one here. That one's pretty tight. All right, I'm gonna unbolt this here and here and see if we can get these out of the way. I think we can. Ah, yeah. That's pretty much out of the way. Yeah. That'll work. I thought it would work. It works on one side. Why does it not work on the other? Ah, look at that. Perfection. Let's see if we can't gotta get that main out. We've got maybe 1/8 of an inch out. There it is. And now we can pluck the crank right out of the block, I hope. I'm gonna have to do it with this. Well, let's start with the rod bearings. They don't look terrible. There is some wear, however, at the edge. Just at the edge. This one's got a little groove, like a piece of debris went through it. This one's a little more severe. These are fairly worn, but it doesn't look like it looks like it's got a ton of miles on it, but I think it's just due to the neglect and the lack of proper maintenance. And now the rods and pistons. So a lot of the coating is worn off the skirt, but more importantly, the oil control rings are completely plugged up. That is why it was chewing on oil, or at least one factor. Tons of deposits jammed in the oil control rings. No piston damage. I think the rods and pistons are perfectly fine. That one's got a little bit of strange wear on it. What causes that, guys? I don't understand why that's like that. The rest of this looks pretty good. It's just the oil rings, really. They're pretty awful. And this isn't like some modern, low-tension, tiny little paperclip, oil control rings. These are good ones, usually. But in this case, this is the underlying reason why this engine came apart. The main bearings, though, they tell a somewhat different story because the rear is pretty worn. I'm not quite sure why. The car came from was an automatic. The E60 was most likely an automatic. I don't know. I don't have the VIN from that vehicle, but there is some significant wear. Nothing that's coming apart, and I think the little specks of metal that we found in the oil filter are probably from this, if I were to guess. Now, this is one of the easiest to sell parts out of this engine, and that is the crankshaft, because it's virtually the same as an S52, the previous generation of M3 engine here in the States. And a lot of people like this crank. I've sold a ton of these things over the years. This one's going to need a little polish. That's probably the roughest journal right there. You can't feel that with your fingernail, but you can see it. But I don't think this one's going to need to be turned. Won't know that until it goes to machine shop, but we're going to drop it off and have it polished anyway. I think that'll be money well spent, unless someone wants to do it themselves. The block looks pretty nice. Not a ton of strange wear, not a ton of vertical scratches. Let's go to the other side here, see if the lighting's any better. There's a better look. Not terrible. Definitely a serviceable block. It's got some odd wear right there. It's probably the worst of it. Center 2 cylinders. However, I still think this is a very usable block. The problem is it worth it with the block damage right here on the edge? Is it worth going to a machine shop and saving, or should this go to the scrap bin? You guys tell me. Like many of you, my first inclination was to feel bad for this engine because clearly it wasn't maintained, it was abused and neglected, and who knows of its history prior to being in this clapped out, bald back tired, straight piped E46. I don't know why you would buy a white on tan automatic 330 and try to turn it into something it's not. Stop it. Stop. Just leave the nice cars alone and go destroy something else. I'm really trying to throw some hate at the previous owner of this car, who I'll probably never know who it was. Regardless of that, while I do feel bad for this engine, I will say this engine looks better than a lot of the M54s that come into my shop, which is sad because a lot of these engines needed very little to keep them in operable condition, and the things that they needed were ignored. A lot of people with these vehicles, with this engine, react to maintenance needs and not proactively replace parts. Especially in the X3s, the X5s, and even the E39s. Those are usually not enthusiast-owned vehicles. Those are people that drive them every day until they stop running or throw a check engine light or smell weird or make weird sounds. And then they take it to a shop, and at that point, it's damage control and not proactive maintenance. And that's unfortunate because a lot of M54 powered vehicles are just commuter cars. However, in the Z3s, the Z4s, and even a lot of E46s, a lot of those people take great care of them. So I get some really nice parts when I get those from the auction. Usually Z3s and Z4s are pretty well taken care of and they have low miles. They're really good cars overall. Now, this was a running engine and I could have easily sold it. I don't like selling question marks, or even boat anchors. It's not my business. And if I had sold this as saying, well, it runs good, but it burns a little bit of oil, which honestly, it was available as a builder engine for about 9 months before I decided to tear it down. If someone had installed it without going through it, it would have been a guaranteed problem. Absolutely guaranteed problem. While the core function of the engine was correct, all the guides were super brittle, they were falling apart, and the oil control rings, how do you clean that out? Or how do you know if you can clean that out? Sure, we could have run a bunch of stuff through it, but none of that stuff would have fixed the timing guides. None of that stuff would have gotten the washer out of the engine that I would never have known was there unless I tore it down. There are so many reasons why this engine should not have been sold as a running engine, and I'm glad that we take the extra care. I sell plenty of engines. I've had 2 engines returned as defective in the last 3 years, and both of them were not defective and were resold because the shops couldn't diagnose their way out of a paper bag. Yeah. Regardless of that, this engine displayed all of the normal signs of somebody not caring about it, but one thing I am glad it did not show signs of is overheating. So these vehicles need cooling systems every 100-ish thousand miles, and when they're not done, they tend to spring leaks and then they overheat. When these engines are overheated, specifically the M54s and aluminum M52s, when you pull the headbolts out, it can pull threads out of the block. This did not do that, not the way that an overheated engine does. And this is why I'm so torn as to what to do with this block, because the bores are nice, the threads are nice, but it has external block damage on one of the bolt bosses, a rather important one too. So what do you think? This is a $250, $300 block when they're great, maybe $400 for the nicest one possible, but with the block damage, is it worth it? I want to hear what you guys think. The rest of these parts I sell all the time. This is my bread and butter M54 rotating assembly, cylinder heads, cams with trays. I sell that stuff on a regular basis. So if you need any of those things, or if you need an M54, because I have them in stock all the time. I have them as low as of shooting this video with 59,000 miles on them. I just sold one with 46,000 miles on it last week. I also have higher mile examples for much cheaper. You can go to our email, which I'll leave in the video description. But if you would like to peruse our inventory and see what we've been getting in, you can go to Importapart.com. I've been updating our parts cars as often as possible. I really hope you enjoyed this teardown. I know it's been a long time coming for a naturally aspirated M5X engine, and a lot of people were asking for one of these. And I just really couldn't find one that was just not tired. I just couldn't do it, and I wanted to pick an engine that I knew ran, and I knew I'd uncover some shenanigans, and that is what we did today. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Well, it's here. Unfortunately, it's an automatic. I couldn't decode it for whatever reason. The decoder was broken. But it's all right. It's got an engine in it. We can't get in it because all the doors are locked, so we're going to use the tool for the job. Well, he broke it. And we broke into it. Always a good sign, but at least it's for European vehicles. No tools. Is there a battery in here? There is a battery in here. Crash fuse is not deployed. Oh yeah, that's where you keep the oil. BMW made them that way. Oh, it's empty. That's a good sign. It's empty. That's your ignition coil. I got some funnels. Cool cap.
That is not the dipstick hose. That's been cut.
Well, if you make the dipstick longer, it takes less oil, right? Oh, it smells not so great in here. How many miles are on you? 143. Not terrible.